Okay, let's begin. So again, welcome to today's training class here at CNS. We offer weekly training classes covering different topics. Looking at our schedule, we've got this week we're going over inventory setup and some transaction processing options. Next week we'll have some foreign currency review for those of you that deal with foreign currencies in your Acumatica setup. It'll be a good informative session. And then the following week, we've got time and expenses for those that have employees or non-employee subcontractors that need to enter time and enter expense receipts for expense claims. So our different weekly training classes can be found at acumaticaengineering.com/acumatica-training. Being a customer of Central Nervous Systems, only you folks get access to these different training topics. And of course, past training sessions are recorded, and those are available at acumaticaengineering.com/maintenance-classes. With all sessions, there is an opportunity to ask questions, which we'll have a look at the end of the presentation. So please use that question box if you do have a question that does come up, and we'll answer as many as we can or have time for. Otherwise, one that we don't get to, we will have a video with answers posted to our blog, which is acumaticaengineering.com/blog. So today's session, just going to have a look at the agenda. We've got an overview of inventory management, which is, what is inventory management, and then the below items are going to be looking at the components of inventory management. So we have warehouses, stock and non-stock items. We have kit specifications, or bills of material, as they might be called in manufacturing. We've got direct inventory transactions, a review of physical inventory, and inventory replenishment. And then finally, looking at some useful reports, and then an overall review. Okay. So inventory management overview. So the basic definition of inventory management is to manage and track inventory. So in a nutshell, we want to know where, what, and how much of any particular inventory item is at all times. It's a multifaceted requirement. So looking to optimize inventory, we want to aim to reduce safety stock without risking a stock out. So we want to have enough stock on hand so that if we do get a surprise order, we're not going to be telling customers, sorry, we're out of stock and we're waiting for something to come in. So we always have that buffer room. And then on the flip side, we want to make sure that we improve inventory replenishment such that we're not caught in a situation where we have too much inventory and maybe that particular inventory velocity or movement slows down and we're stuck with an overstock. We're stuck with product that we have to write down or toss out, or maybe stuff that expires. We don't want to be put in that position either. So when we look to reduce safety stock without risking a stock out, and we improve our replenishment, the goal there is to then increase our inventory turns. So the higher number of inventory turns that you have in a given period, the better the organization is doing at managing their inventory movement. A couple other options at tracking inventory are containing costs. So with any inventory optimization, we're looking to track our cost of goods sold so that product that is brought in, maybe it gets combined with other products through kit assemblies, um, and then moves through to issuing product to sales orders. We want to be able to track those costs of goods through the whole process. And then, of course, at any given point, we want to be able to have a look at our existing inventory carrying costs. So how much inventory per item, per location or warehouse do we have? What's our carrying cost by location, by item class? We want to be able to review those options as well. And then adding some complexity to inventory management, we will be looking at things like kit assemblies or bills of material, making sure that our ratios within those assemblies are accurate, so that we don't experience inventory imbalances when completing those kit assemblies. And then we want to also make sure that when we do have serial or lot tracking turned on and on specific items, that we're able to reconcile between our lot quantity and our location quantity, and be able to track products through their serial number all the way to their base items, if and when needed. Okay, so the next slide here, it's going to show a basic example that outlines, a multiple warehouse, multiple vendor, multiple customer scenario. This, may or may not be true to what your organization is, but it's just going to demonstrate the basics of inventory and distribution flow in Acumatica. So here we've got warehouse one that creates a purchase order to supplier one, and that supplier then creates a replenishment to send product over. It'll create an invoice, obviously, that warehouse one has to pay, or that we would have to pay. And likewise with warehouse two, a similar option exists where they're shipping product from supplier two over to warehouse two. We then have an option where we are transferring through intercompany warehouses. So we're shipping product from the West Coast to the East Coast here, or warehouse one to warehouse two. And then from each of these warehouses, which is essentially a storage location for inventory, we have the option to replenish inventory to our retail locations. And our retail locations are taking sales from customers. So, we've got counter sales, we have online orders, and we also have situations where customers are ordering directly. So from these warehouses, we can ship to our retail locations to fulfill those customer orders, or when they're ordered directly from warehouse, or it's more efficient, we can probably just ship directly from the warehouse to our customers here. So this example here with customer two, this might be a standing order or a monthly subscription that we just ship every month to. Customer three may have placed a direct order for a larger, sale. And then this customer one is a standard customer that likely walks into the store and grabs some product off of the shelf. So, and then here our retail two is an online, has online options. So customer two has created that online order and we've shipped that out. So that's the basic distribution flow. Of course, there's many different varieties and configurations here, but this is just a basic one. Moving on, let's start with component one of inventory management, which is warehouses. So warehouses is essentially a site with inventory. So with warehouses, we have the ability to provide specific storage locations and GL accounts. So here with this snapshot, we have this VA wholesale, which is the Service East warehouse. And within that warehouse, we then have a number of different locations or buckets where inventory can get stored in. So within the warehouse, they have table 1, table 2, table 3, which are little locations within the warehouse that store inventory. We have a receiving area, a drop ship location, and a special orders location. And then each of them have their different options. So our sales allowed out of them, receipts allowed into them, our transfers allowed, and so forth. The key thing about warehouses that might be useful to your organization is we do have the ability to address and specify um, GL and sub account preferences. So anything that is brought into this warehouse will flow through a specific GL and sub account structure of your choosing. And so we would be able to do that on the GL tab. So again, I'll just go through a couple of the basic foundation pieces, and then we'll hop into Acumatica and have a look. So the next is we're going to be looking at some stock and non-stock items. So first tab here, we've got some stock items. In this example, we've got a Harville 4-foot air hockey table. So with stock items, we've got the ability to group similar items by item class. So over here, in this area here, we've got our inventory or item defaults. So this has been selected as a consumer toy. Other types of classes might be, wood raw materials, sporting goods, computer parts, whatever class you decide to group similar items by. Those class settings are going to dictate some of the other defaults that get generated for a stock item. So we also have the ability to group those item classes into a posting class and choose different avenues that those classes of items get posted to for inventory. So we may want to be able to track inventory at the GL level by item class. Other options that usually get defaulted when you choose that item class will be things like the type. So in this case, is it a finished good? Is it a kit? Is it a raw material? You'll also get to see the default valuation method. So we have standard, average, specific, or FIFO or first in, first out costing methods. And then determining what the posting class that generates from the item class, as well as whether that item is not lot tracked, serial tracked, or lot tracked. So other defaults that pick up will be the warehouse defaults that you could put here. So in this particular case, the default warehouse is wholesale. It's an issue from row 1, shelf 1, and a default receipt to the receiving location. And over here, we've got our default units of measure. In this case, this air hockey table is a base unit is a each, sales unit and purchasing units are sold each. Okay. Each of these tabs up here will have other more detailed information where we can put in some extra information. So and define some extra settings for this item once we've populated that item class. So just like stock items, we have non-stock items. Now, by definition, non-stock items are items that we do not store. So warehouse defaults are not needed, but a lot of the other information is needed. So we will have things like unit of measure default and some item type defaults. In this case, we've picked up consulting or project consulting, which is a non-physical item. Its type here is labor. So project labor, and it has a posting class of PM labor. So that is going to dictate the accounts and sub-accounts that this item uses when it is used in transactions. So again, non-stock items are kept in a warehouse, are not kept in a warehouse, and therefore do not require the tracking of quantities, value, inventory. And since the costing here is dictated by a standard cost, so what is our standard cost of project consulting? There are no need to select a valuation method. So down here, one good thing to note for unit of measure, since our base unit is an hour and our sales and purchasing units are by hour, we have the option to then pick up a conversion. So when purchases or expenses or transactions are put through in terms of minutes, there is a conversion of 60 units to an hour and 8 hours to a day in this case. Let's have a look at Acumatica. So we'll head over to inventory, and I've got show all here, but profiles is really where a lot of the foundation information is set up. So if we take a look at warehouses, okay, and we look at, say, that wholesale warehouse that was a default, we've got a number of different locations within that warehouse. And we have a receiving location, a shipping location, RMA, and dropship location dictated, which is pulling from this table. We have our GL accounts, which will dictate the flow of where inventory is, what GL account the inventory is stored in, sales accounts, and defaults that are coming out of this warehouse. Okay. Of course, we do have some reports as well that we'll have a look at later. So if we head back into inventory, here we can look at stock items. So similar screens, let this load. All right, so here we have our list of stock items. Let's go and look something up that might be a good option. Let's look up this Dell desktop computer. Of course, I could have typed in the item code or the description here, but found it anyways. So here we've got our general settings that we went over. So in this particular case, we have a Dell desktop computer that has an item class of computers and tablets. And it's a finished good that is also a kit. Its valuation method is average. It's tax exempt, and its posting class posts to electronics and computers. So dictating that posting class will give us our lead into the GL accounts that are used, which can be updated and changed if we wanted, but those will be the defaults that populate. Another thing that we want to look at is this is a serial number when used tracking. So this product is tracked by serial number with an auto incremental value, and its warehouse defaults get pulled in from the item class, which here would be retail warehouse storage for both issue from and receipt to. Unit of measure of each, and then we've got a couple other pieces here. So warehouse details. So again, if we're looking at this here, we've got our default retail location, and we've got a quantity on hand, and then it also shows that we have something in the warehouse. And again, those inventory accounts and sub accounts that get defaulted. Okay. Vendor details. This will give us some indication as to who is a qualified vendor for this product should we need to buy it, providing us with their name, location, lead time, and last vendor price. Useful information there. Attributes might be some custom information or attributes of that particular part. So we could set up some attributes here, and we can maybe populate an image if we wanted. Okay. So with non-stock items, we've got something pretty similar. Okay, let's find that consulting. So here, I'll just so again, because it's a non-stock, there are no warehouse defaults or options for valuation, but we do see those conversions of unit of measure as well as item defaults that populate into the GL accounts. Now, because okay, so very similar information, just again, everything is going to really be dictated by classes and class defaults, which of course can then be updated as needed. Okay. Sorry about that. Allergy season and sneezing. Let's head back into our presentation. Next, we have kit specifications. So a kit is a collection of stock and non-stock components that make up a new item. A manufacturing outfit, we'll call this a bill of material, maybe a recipe. A distribution company will call this a kit. So in this example here, this screenshot, we've got a laptop assembly specification for the ELE Comp 2. It looks like a Lenovo computer. We've got options for revisions, so we can track changes in that kit or that assembly. And here we identify both stock and non-stock components, but on the stock side, we need a laptop computer motherboard, we need one CPU, and we need one hard drive, and there may be others underneath it. Okay. So if we head into Acumatica, we go to inventory, we go to kit specifications. If we go and we look up that Dell computer that we were looking at, we might, oh, there it is, Dell desktop computer. We see that it requires one motherboard, one CPU, and one 1 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drive, and requires no non-stock items. We also see that there are 2 revisions. So the 20th or revision 20 may have differences. It has an updated 2 terabyte hard drive. Let's see if we can find something that has a non-stock. Yep. Bundled food package. No, nothing with non-stocks, but here's an example of a food one. We got hot dog buns, franks, dogs, and chips, one of each, but it has a max component quantity of 5, so we could put up to 5 of each into there. Okay. Okay, heading back into our presentation. Looking at direct inventory transactions. So direct inventory transactions are not based on any sales or purchase documents, and they can be internal or external. So there are 5 types of direct inventory transactions. And so that would be receipts. So inventory receipts into the system, adding inventory into the system without a purchase order. Issues, which would be, directly issuing inventory, but not to a sales order. We have adjustments. So there's 2 key types of adjustments, which are adjustments to cost or adjustments to quantity. So if we're increasing the cost of product, it's going to look at that delta and that delta of cost. So say moving something from $10 to $11, and we have 100 units, that delta is $1. So $1 delta times 100 units is a $100 charge that you'll see on your GL. And with quantity, if we've got 10 units in the system at $10, but we go and we say we have none and we drop it to 0, that's a delta of 10 units down. So 10 times 10, $100 down that you'll see on the GL. Transfers between warehouses. So again, looking back at that distribution flow. So when we're transferring, I'll just go back to it. So those transfers might include moving from warehouse 1 to a retail location, or moving product from or between warehouse 1 and warehouse 2. So we're seeing an in and an out between 2 intercompany warehouses. And then, of course, our final one is that kit assembly. So building up product, putting 2 or 3 or 4 different types of stock items into a box, or taking 2 or 3 or 4 different types of items to create a new item that might be more in a manufacturing environment. So a bill of materials. So let's go have a look at Acumatica again. So inventory. So within the transactions, we have those 5 different key types. So let's just go and have a look at a couple and see what they show. Probably won't do any transactions today, but let's have a look and see what we have time for. So if we looking at a receipt, if we open up this one here, we'll see that we brought in 1,500 of this AA Computer 01 at a cost of $250. Again, there's no purchase order on this. There's no supplier held. The expended cost is $375,000, and we've got some financial details, batch number here, which we can drill into if we needed to. Okay, heading back, if we go to, let's have a look at issues. Okay, so let's look at this one here. So 40 pieces at $299 were issued of this EL Kindle, electric Kindle. With a unit price and a unit cost. So that'll create the profit there. Good description here. So Kindle Fire, 8.9-inch tablet HD. Let's have a look again at the other transactions. We've got adjustments. So again, like I was saying at the presentation level, these adjustments are really going to be based on the deltas. So in these cases, like the quantities did not change, but the costs did. And they changed by those respective amounts, which totaled 18,698. Let's see if I can find something with quantity. Here. So at these different locations, this item here, widget 1, we had a delta of 15 units down, so it dropped it by 15 units. And then for widget 3, we increased the R1 S2 location by 3 units, and we decreased R1 S1 by 10 units. So there's a delta of 7 there. So that's why we have negative 15, negative 7 is negative 22 for a total adjustment cost of 256.70. Now, okay, heading back, we've got transfers. So with transfers, I'm going from warehouse here to the retail warehouse, just like that distribution flow showed. And we're moving 130 units from this location to the retail warehouse, which has a total quantity of 130. So transfer to accommodate customer pickup. Okay. Kit assembly. So these are those builds or those packaging for distribution or builds for manufacturing. Let's have a look here. So here's that Lenovo laptop. So in this particular case, we're looking to build 100 Lenovo laptops. So again, if we remember that bill of material, it required 1 motherboard, 1 hard drive, and 1 CPU. So building out 100 of them, we'll remove 100 of each of these. So making sure that those bills of material are accurate will ensure that your inventory remains accurate. So if this was accidentally put in as 10 units, you may see a big variance in hard drives when this gets produced, because it's going to take out, instead of 100 hard drives, it might take out 1,000 from inventory. So making sure that kit assembly or that bill of materials is accurate is key, especially if you have multiple bills of material levels. Okay. All right. So take a look back at our presentation here. Next topic for inventory management is going to be physical inventory. Depending on how many times a physical inventory is done in your organization. Some companies it's a year end or once a year. Others it's quarterly or biannually. But the physical inventory is a process to take an accurate inventory snapshot in a particular warehouse. So the 4 stages of a physical inventory are the physical inventory preparation. So again, taking that snapshot of inventory, which is typically an internal snapshot that says, okay, these are how many units of each item that I have at each location, and then heading out and counting all the items in that warehouse. Once you count, you then go through the pain and the rigor of entering that count data. Lots of people might be used to going through and using Excel for that, but Acumatica does have the ability to enter those numbers directly in, and then from there we have a delta. So if we look at this little screenshot here, it's small, but the snapshot quantity of the Dell desktop was 440, but actual counted is 435. So there is a delta of -5, and that is what the variance transaction will be based on, is that delta, much like an adjustment. So a physical inventory is like doing an adjustment, but an adjustment en masse. Again, it's only going to be based on those quantity deltas. Now, the added complexity would be is if you had lot tracked or serial tracked items, and there's an imbalance between the lots that are showing in the system and available with quantities, and the lots that are counted and need to be reconciled or trued up. That will add some complexity to the physical inventory, which we don't necessarily have the full time to review now, but if you have lot tracking enabled and need to reconcile quantities between lots, you know that it's not just a quantity, but it's also lot reconciliation, which plays further into traceability, particularly if you're in electronics or in food. Okay. Next thing is inventory replenishment. So inventory replenishment is on a per warehouse basis. Replenishment for multiple warehouses can be consolidated into a single purchase order at the main warehouse and then transferred to different warehouses. So again, we had that example where we're bringing product into warehouse 2 and or warehouse 1, and then from warehouse 1 it could be transferred over or into warehouse 2 or replenished stock into retail 1. So we have different methods for replenishment and how we base our replenishment. So we could use minimums and maximum quantities, or we could also have fixed order quantities. So a couple different reasons for having mins and maxes might be storage capacity. So we don't want to overfill the location or the warehouse. And a minimum may be a good point that triggers the replenishment of inventory into that warehouse. A fixed order quantity is useful because with shipping costs and trucking costs, we want to make sure that we're sending an ideal quantity to ensure that those costs are kept at an optimal level. If the optimal level is to ship out 500 boxes of a product and we only move 100, the cost is going to be much higher on a per unit basis and not ideal, and it may require more transfers and more shipments. So finding that sweet spot for a minimum and a maximum, if capacity is a constraint, is ideal in combination with a fixed order quantity to make sure that we're shipping product in time lapses that maybe it's not every day, depending on the type of environment you have, but the ideal goal is to make sure that the costs for shipment between the two and inventory replenishment is at an optimal level. So updating your replenishment parameters, so updating those mins and those fixed order quantities is really based on demand forecasts. So it's a moving average method to calculate the demand for a specific future period based on historical sales. So, we're into February now. I might want to start looking at what I did in March 2022 to determine, what is my stock and replenishment going to be needed for March 2023. And that will help guide me into determining what the replenishment needs are for that, in conjunction with, lead times from vendors, current supply chain issues, etc. Okay. So useful reports. With useful reports, we've got a few of them. So we've got inventory summary, which is a quantity by item. We've got storage summary, which is a quantity by warehouse. We've got inventory transaction history, which is a quantity by date. Inventory valuation, which is a cost or dollars by account. Historical inventory valuation, so it's our dollars by account by period. So if we want to say, okay, well, what was our inventory value at the end of January 2022 and compare that to end of January 2023, that would be a good report to use. and then the inventory register. So it's quantity and dollars by period. So let's have a look at Acumatica. So we've got these options here. We've got reports down here, and we've got inquiries. So inventory summary, which was one of the ones that we went through. We can look up that Dell desktop. So here we've got that star, which says that the item ID is required, but the warehouse and location have been left empty. If this is an item that was stored across 10 or 15 different locations in the system, we may want to specify that. But in this case, it's not. It's only in one. So we've got 435 available. If we choose a different item, it'll update like that. Okay. Storage summary. So let's pick a warehouse. It'll tell us all the items in that warehouse and the quantities on hand. Okay. If we wanted to select a specific storage ID, we could. Okay. Inventory valuation, which is a report. So let's pick a warehouse. We could do warehouse. Let's see if we can run this report. So we've got our warehouse. This is our account number that all of these inventory items and quantities are being posted to, that 12100 account. And we've got our items, our quantities. We have serial numbers for those items that are serialized. And then we have costs. It's probably, it's a big report, 147, but here on this next page, we have 12100-con 000. We probably have a couple of different sub-accounts here. ELE-000, that's where we find our Dell and Lenovo laptop computers. Okay. What else did we have? Inventory transaction history. That's a good one. Yeah, let's look at that one. Inventory transaction history. And this is an old database, so let's go back to 2019. Maybe older. There we go. So heading back to 2016, we've got adjustments, invoices, transfers. We've got those dates, serial numbers used. And again, with all the inquiries, hitting that X button, you can export this information to Excel if you want. And you could also do a serial lot history if you had a specific serial number and a lot number. Pull up the history on that. What else did we have? What else? There one is a good one. Historical valuation, inventory valuation. So historical inventory valuation is picking the start. So let's just pick, it's an old database, so we can pick, let's pick June 2016. Not 2012, that won't work. we go. And we have those inventory values. So beginning, receipts, transfers in, assemblies in, all the details needed. And ending. Okay. All right, heading back into our presentation, we had a look at reports there. So let's have a review. So we talked about inventory management and the various components that make up inventory management. So we had a look at warehouses and the defaults and settings available there, particularly the locations within warehouses. We had a dive into stock items and non-stock items, picking those inventory item classes or warehouse defaults for stock items, as well as identifying what type of non-stock items we're creating and the unit of measure conversions for those. We looked at kit specifications or BOM recipes of the 5 different direct inventory transactions. We had a chat about physical inventory and inventory replenishment, and we looked at some useful reports. Wrapping up, again, weekly training classes covering different topics every week. Next week, a good one on foreign currency review, followed by time and expense review. So look to see you at those. Questions? I don't see any questions today, so that wraps up today's presentation. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.